Okay, so eventually I will figure out how to do the live broadcast thing so I don't have the big delays at the beginning or the ending of each episode. So I apologize for that. We're still working our way through the tools and getting it right. So we're 9 days to Thanksgiving and starting to get the hits not only on the videos that I've put up about turkeys, but also getting some questions from y'all about how to buy one and how to get ready and how to roast it correctly. So that's what we're going to be talking about today is turkeys. So if you've got a question, shoot it to me. So let's first talk about how to buy a turkey. Okay, what are you buying? Because there's quite a bit of variety out there on the market, and it can be kind of confusing if you don't know what you're looking for. So the first kind, all over the place, you're going to be seeing all natural, natural turkeys. The problem with the label, and I'm not saying it's a bad product or that any of them are bad products. I'm just saying the problem with the label is that it really doesn't necessarily mean anything. The FDA has not given a definition to what natural or all natural means on a label. So you may be paying extra for a product that doesn't necessarily have any substance to back it up. So you want to watch for that. You want to really read that label and try to discern what exactly do they mean. I mean, if you flip it over and you've got a list of ingredients, then you're probably not buying what you think you're buying. In my head, an all natural turkey would be something that would be just the turkey, right? Just the turkey itself after it was slaughtered and prepped. That's all that's in there. There have actually been some lawsuits recently from people that have some class action suits, people suing manufacturers for labeling things as all natural when they had clearly engineered ingredients in them. So all natural doesn't necessarily have an FDA defined meaning. So watch out for that when you're buying your turkey. So the other thing that you're going to find is kosher birds, and kosher is simply means salted. Now, in the koshering process, in order to be kosher, it has to be slaughtered and prepared according to I've forgotten the name of the ritual, but there's a certain way it has to be prepared. And then it is heavily salted, and that again is for religious reasons. It's to supposedly draw the rest of the blood out of the bird. So these birds can be really well seasoned, very flavorful. They can be very moist, but they are already salted. So it's a little difficult for you to go in and control the seasoning yourself. So if you buy a bird that has been koshered, effectively it's already been brined, right? It was salted on the outside, but that serves the same thing as a brine does. So you want to be very careful about your seasoning at that point. Kosher birds are delicious. They taste really, really good. And so if you're a newbie, this might be something that you want to try. So if you don't have a whole lot of experience, a kosher bird probably is going to be one of the more simple things that you can do. Great flavor, easy to do. So you're also probably going to see several manufacturers have put out self-basting or pre-brined birds. And if you read the label on these products, you'll see that it contains, I've forgotten if it's somewhere between 6 and 10% of water and seasonings and flavorings that have been added. These birds can be good, and again, if you're new, this might be one of the best ways that you can get a lot of success if you want something that's really easy and you don't have to mess with, is to find one that is self-basted. One of the things that I have a problem with a self-basted bird is that the flavor tends to be diluted, I think. And again, you can't really do a whole lot with your own seasonings and your own flavors if that's something that you want to play with. So in all of them, I mean, honestly, I go to the supermarket and the turkeys I buy are going to be the ones that are simply a turkey. But I'm going to go after the ones that are inexpensive. You know, I've got a big family, and Thanksgiving can really wreck the budget if we're not careful. Hey, baby, go around that way, sweet. They can wreck the budget if you're not careful. So recently I found some for 58 cents a pound. It's nothing but a turkey. So that's what I buy. However, there have been times when I have hit on an organic bird, locally raised. I was able to meet the farmer, and I know how that bird was cared for. And if you have that kind of opportunity, I would say 100% go for it. You're going to have great success. Turkeys just are not that difficult. They can be very intimidating. Don't get me wrong, they can be intimidating, but check out a couple of the videos I've done on turkeys and how to brine them and how to prepare them, how to roast them, because you do any of those things, your bird's going to be delicious, right? So there's really not a bad choice. It's just how much do you want to be able to control what goes into it, and that's pretty much your deciding factor. Give me just a minute, sweetie. All right, so you buy your bird, and you're going to bring it home, and chances are it's going to be frozen. So that's probably one of the biggest issues that people run into at Thanksgiving. They forget it can take 4 to 5 days to defrost a bird, depending on how big the bird is. So if you've got, let's see, on average, I tend to buy birds that are 12 pounds or so, and I'll buy 2 instead of getting big ones. They tend to be more tender. But on average, most Thanksgiving turkeys are 12 to 16 pounds or so. So you're going to have to give yourself 4 days to let that defrost in the refrigerator. Now, what happens if you've got an emergency and you forget to defrost it? You can do it with what's called the cold water method. You can put it in a bucket. I use my kitchen sink. Scrub out your kitchen sink, put it in there, and let just the tiniest bit of cold water run constantly over that bird. It will still take several hours to defrost, but that is an emergency method. The other thing that you can do is to put it in cold water, change your water out every 30 minutes, and your bird, again, it will take several hours, but you can get it defrosted. Okay. Otherwise, in your refrigerator, not on your counter, that's a safety thing, right? So give it 4 days. It will be fine in your refrigerator as long as your refrigerator temperature is fine. My niece is trying to do something. Hang on just a second. Hey, can you give me about 10 more minutes and then I'll help you out? Okay, awesome. Sorry about that. What are we doing? Oh, don't defrost on your counter. The temperature is going to not really be safe for what you want to do. Now, once you've got it defrosted, don't forget to check the cavities. And you've got 2 of them. There's the main cavity, but then there's also the cavity at the neck. Sometimes stuff gets tucked in those cavities. It could be the giblet package. It could be the neck. All of those things, you want to make sure that you've got that done. You want to make sure that you dry your bird. You do want to let it come to room temperature for about an hour before you roast it. So put it on the counter. Pat it dry and use paper towels. Don't use dishcloths, and that's just that's another safety thing. So keep it clean. That's a big one. Another thing people forget is to season it correctly. Now, if you're brining your bird, you're not going to have to worry about seasoning it before you put it in the oven. You want to do it 24 hours in advance, and I've got videos on how to brine and how to make a brine and how to do all of that kind of stuff. So there's videos up on that. But when you're brining, you don't have to worry about seasoning in addition. However, if you're going to do something like, there's my niece, if you're going to do something like, go around the other way, honey. If you're going to do something like rub the inside with butter or do I like to do butter and honey. Hey, Tressa. If you're going to do something like that, then you do want to make sure that you season correctly, and you want to do the skin and do the cavity, because if you miss the cavity, you're missing an opportunity for a lot of flavor there as well. So don't forget, season inside and out. You're checking the cavities. You're patting it dry. You do not have to baste when you're roasting a turkey, and here's why. If you rub the skin down real well with a little bit of butter, or if you use some oil, that's the only opportunity you really have to work on the skin itself, and you've already lost your shot at getting seasonings inside. Once it's in the oven, you're not going to be doing anything additional by basting, and here's why. A lot of times what you're basting with is the juices that end up in the pan, and those are great, but a lot of it is not fat, and what you're doing is adding moisture back to the skin itself. instead of fat, which means your skin is going to turn out to be kind of soggy. And the skin itself creates a barrier between what you're wanting to put on there and the inside where the meat is. So you're really just wetting the skin, which is kind of counterproductive. So don't worry about basting. It's not going to do anything for you. You don't want to do that. Let's see. You want to start. Oh, one of my favorite ways of doing a turkey is to start it at 500 degrees and keep it at 500 for 30 minutes and then turn it down to 350 to let it finish. What's going to happen is your turkey skin is going to get nice and crisp, and you're going to seal in all those juices. Yes, there's going to be quite a few in the bottom of the roasting pan, but what you're doing is you're creating this wonderful skin on the outside of the bird that's going to get crispy and fabulous, and the inside is going to stay much more moist, right? So 500 degrees for 30 minutes and then turn it down. You're also only going to have 2.5 to 3 hours of roasting time, if you're doing it with that method. So low and slow works, hot and fast works. One of the problems with a dry turkey is that middle ground. So if your recipe is 325, 275 to 325 for an extended period of time, that is that much longer where you're going to lose all the juices, right? So hot and fast, low and slow, either one of those are great methods, but stay away from that middle ground, okay? Okay, Janet asked me, how do I get the most juice from the bird? And I'm going to tell you, I'm going to admit, I cheat a little bit in a couple ways. First of all, probably in the next couple days, we're 9 days out from Thanksgiving. In the next couple days, I will actually be roasting several turkeys for different TV studios I go to. But even if I weren't doing that, I would do a turkey the week ahead in order simply to make turkey broth, right? So I would have turkey broth standing by already because gravy is one of the best things ever on the planet, and you can't have enough. So I do a turkey just to get the broth. And of course, I feed 9,000 people, so I don't have to worry about the leftover issue. The second thing I do to get really super juicy, flavorful drippings in the pan, and Janet, I'm thinking you're asking about that. I almost always brine my birds, at least 2 of them. I do at least 2 birds, sometimes more than that, depending on who's coming. But I'll brine the birds, and I do it with a pretty basic brine. I use kosher salt. I use either white sugar or brown sugar. Peppercorn, bay leaves, fresh thyme. I'll use some lemon in there, whole lemons. You cut them up into wedges, but use the whole thing. Brine it the day ahead. Couple hours before you're ready to roast it, pull it out, let it make sure it gets nice and dry, okay, and let it come down in temperature a little bit. So that's really how I end up with tons of juice, right? When I pan roast, instead of using a standard oven rack, you know what I'm talking about, the roasting pan with the rack that holds the bird. Yeah, Jana wants to know about gravy, yep. Instead of using a standard roasting rack, I will take a baking sheet, like a cookie sheet, but with the rim on it, and I'll cover it with foil, and then on top of that, I use onion, carrot, and celery, and I'll lay out those veggies in a nice thick layer. So once your bird's out of the brine and it's come, more towards room temperature, place your bird directly on that fat layer of vegetables. Now, here's what's going to happen. I rub the outside with a little bit of olive oil. That's going to get nice crisp skin. But as the turkey roasts, those vegetables roast, and those vegetables collect all that juice that come out, right? So once we're done, I take it out, I transfer the bird somewhere else, and I've got that baking rack that's covered with those roasted vegetables and all the juices. And the juices are going to be pretty well flavored already because we brined the bird, okay? So that's what I end up using for my turkey gravy. And I did a video, I think just last week, on how to make turkey gravy, and I show how you take all those vegetables and you really squish them up, mash them up, and I end up straining it, so don't worry about lumps. But that turkey gravy is some of the best stuff ever. So, I mean, that's really one of the best ways to get super juicy, yummy, delicious stuff that you make your gravy with, okay? So, and yes, that is my niece eating cereal in the background. All right, I got a couple.
I literally just said that in the
I know. Shh. All right, let's see. Let me look at a couple other questions I had over here. All right, so I've mentioned before that at my house we have a great big family, and I do at least 2 birds. There have been times when I've done 4 birds. Um, one of the things that's really important to remember when you're doing a turkey is to work on temperature and doing it the right way. I've got a video on how to roast a turkey, and I show how to place a thermometer. A lot of turkeys, matter of fact, it's hard to buy a turkey now that doesn't have the pop-up thermometer. Forget the pop-up thermometer. Okay, just ignore it. What you want to do is get a good meat thermometer. And in the videos, again, if you look at one of the turkey videos, I show you exactly where to place it. You only want to place it in what's called the oyster. So you're going under the thigh, not the thigh bone, but you're going into the thickest part of the thigh. And don't do it in the breast. That's just, you're going to get, the dark meat takes longer to cook, right? So if you're taking the temperature of the breast, you might be undercooked with the dark meat. Now, what you're going after is 165 Fahrenheit with your internal thermometer at the oyster right there. The pop-up thermometer, which those are usually designed with wax that melts at a certain temperature so that your thermometer pops up. The problem is, by the time that hits, you've already hit 185, which means the breast meat is going to be overcooked, right? So if you go after 165 in the oyster at the thigh, you're going to pull your bird out. You have to let it rest. Give it at least half an hour, okay? So if you're giving a half an hour, you'll get a good 10 degrees in carryover cooking. That happened to me just a couple days ago with another roast that I was doing. You'll get another 10 degrees of carryover cooking. That will get you up to where the dark meat is cooked correctly and your white meat is still nice and juicy. So you're going to have like a win-win there if you're doing the thermometer correctly, okay? All right, let's see. What was one of the other questions I had? We had, let's see. Oh, you're welcome, Janet. I appreciate it. Linda, I always get the, go around the other way. I always get the cheapest turkey, just because I have a huge family. There's a bunch of us, and money matters. I talked a little bit about how if you have an opportunity to get something like a great local organic something, go ahead and buy it. The major manufacturers, let's see, is Honeysuckle, I know is one, of course Butterball. These are quality companies. You're going to get a quality product. And I think instead of worrying about how much it costs, which of course I do, I'm not going to worry about what's expensive. What I'm going to go after is if I can find one of the major manufacturers, if I'm going to spend a little money, I'm going to go after the one that says all natural. At the beginning of the video, we talked about what all natural means. For these guys, what it means is that nothing has been added, right? So we don't have any koshering, there's no basting, there's no salt, no additives. And I've noticed with the self-basting ones or the kosher birds, often what you get is, if you're not careful, what you get is a kind of a chemical taste, and some of these marinades or basting applications that they use that I just don't care for. And I would rather have the control over the flavorings that go into my birds. So that's where I come in on the money part. Now, just recently, I had a buddy who is the manager of a grocery store, and I put out on social media, I love doing this, I put out on social media, where has anybody seen the least expensive turkeys? And there was some back and forth and some bounce back, and Larry ended up saying, hey, we've got them for 58 cents a pound. So that's what I went for. And of course, now I have a freezer full of 58 cents a pound turkey. And the ones I have, they're just plain old turkey. No additives, no basting, no koshering, nothing like that. So that's how we do it at my house. Now, if I had my preference, everything would be organic and free range and heritage breeds and the whole 9 yards. But for now, we're still on the budget, so that's what we're going for. All right, let's do another question I had that came in. So we talked about basting. We got that. Oh, if you follow the method that I do, where you start out at 500 degrees and then turn it down at half an hour, you might get a little panicky when you see how dark your bird gets pretty quickly because it's going to get nice and crisp. It's going to get this gorgeous mahogany brown, right? Just keep a little foil on standby, and if you are worried about it going from that crispy, gorgeous thing to burnt, just take a sheet of foil, make him a little blanket, and you'll be fine, I promise. That's a biggie. Had my sister do a turkey a couple years ago, and she called in a panic because she thought she was burning it the first half hour. It won't. It's going to be fine, I promise. All right, we talked about thawing. If for some reason you forget to get your turkey out and defrost it, use the cold water method. That's about the only way. Actually, that's not true. You can roast a turkey from frozen, okay? It won't be great. Chances are it'll be dry. Your skin will have a hard time getting crisp, but if you have an absolute emergency, you can stick it in there frozen, and then once it's defrosted enough to get a thermometer in it, you just go to 165. You've lost all opportunity, however, to flavor it. Okay, so that's a biggie. So try the cold water method instead of going straight from frozen. Okay, last question I had was about stuffing. Now, I am from the South. I didn't know anybody ever stuffed a bird. However, a few years ago, just playing around in the kitchen, I decided to stuff a bird with traditional, just the celery and onion stuffing. And that was phenomenal. I was like, how come I haven't been doing this forever? Well, one of the problems with stuffing versus dressing is that with stuffing, often it is made with eggs, right? Which means, for safety reasons, when you put it in the bird and cook it inside the bird, for safety reasons, you want that stuffing to get to 185 degrees. Well, if your stuffing gets to 185 and it's on the most, here's your turkey, here's your stuffing, this part is going to take the longest to cook. By the time this gets to 185, your breast meat, even the thigh meat, is probably going to be toast, right? It's not going to taste very good. So here's what you can do. This is what I've done, because the stuffing cooked with the bird is one of the most fabulous things I've ever tasted. So, like, as a Southerner, we do dressing. I do it in a casserole dish. It goes on the side. And I roast my turkey unstuffed. But if you have to stuff, couple options. First of all, I would buy, and I did this yesterday actually, bought a turkey breast and roasted the turkey breast on top of the stuffing. So you got a lot of the juices that came out, and it cooked with the stuffing, and it was incredible. Love doing that. The other thing is, you can take your stuffing and nuke it. Throw it in the microwave. You're going to have some pretty asbestos fingers in order to make this work. But nuke your stuffing so that the stuffing goes into the bird hot, and then it has to go straight into the oven. That way, you don't have to wait for the heat to penetrate the entire bird and then into the cavity and all the way through the stuffing. And then as you are bringing it out of the oven, make sure that you check not only the thermometer at the thigh, but check the temperature of that stuffing to make sure it gets to 185 as well. Okay? That's what I'm thinking of. We got stuffing versus not stuffed because it's delicious, but it can be dangerous. We talked about the types of birds. We talked about thawing. Real quick, last thing, food safety. Keep your bird cold. I think most of us are pretty well aware of this by now, but keep your bird cold. Make sure that when you pull it out, you let it come to room temperature, but don't leave it sitting on the counter for more than that hour, right? More than that, it's too much. Pat it dry real well. Use paper towels. Recently, there have been studies showing that if you rinse your poultry before you cook it, you actually have a greater chance of spreading bacteria. So don't do that. Although, if you've got a brine, you're going to have stuff everywhere. I keep a bottle of bleach cleaner at my sink. All my cutting boards, my countertops, my equipment, everything gets a white spray of bleach. So that that takes care of that. And washing your hands. So there you go. That will keep it safe. Oh, after you serve the bird, don't leave it sitting on the counter forever and ever. I remember when I was little, we didn't know we'd leave it sitting out all afternoon. Surprised any of us survived the 70s. But stick your leftovers in the refrigerator pretty quickly, and then you're going to be fine. You want a healthy and safe Thanksgiving, right? Okay, that's what we got for today. Oh, wait. Hey, T. Roy. T. Roy. You know what? That's funny. Your name is Troy. My youngest son is Joseph Roy, so I call him J. Roy. Well, I saw your name on different things, and in my head, you became T. Roy, not Troy, and I'm having a hard time getting around. You could do the stuffing that way. It's just a matter of how much heat do you want to handle. I'm a klutz. I mean, I will drop anything, and it'll go all over the place. But I can't. I personally, 500-degree bird, and then you're trying to stuff it. Yeah, I mean, in theory, if you're a lot more coordinated than I am, that would absolutely work. The one thing I would worry about, though, is drop in the pan, and I would worry about the drop in the bird's temperature overall, and being careful with losing temperature in the oven. So if you're more coordinated than I am, you do a lot of barbecuing. I bet you have some gloves to work with. That would that would work. I think microwaving it would be just as simple. Plus, by the time I get the 500 degrees done, I usually am on my way to doing something else. So I set a timer. I just want to reach over. But I might, I'm doing several birds this week. I might try it and experiment and see which way ends up, being the better thing. I haven't done it yet, so I might give it a shot and see if it works. Matter of fact, I'm doing a shot at WKPT tomorrow, and I think I'm going to give that one a try and see what happens. And I'll just let you know next week when I come back how well I pulled it off or didn't pull it off, or if I burned something down, or how it worked. All right, guys. Chicken, you need to try it. T-Roy, you need to try it and tell me how it works. So let's see. This coming week, we're going to be back on Monday. Had big computer issues yesterday. I don't know what the deal was. I couldn't make anything work. But we're going to be back on Monday at noon, and I'm probably going to be doing a couple of extra live shows this week just because Thanksgiving is my time of year, and I tend to get a billion questions. I am going to be live tomorrow, WKPT. I'm going to be at WJHL next week, and next week we're going to be doing some live questions on air at the TV station. So probably, and that's the day before Thanksgiving, the 23rd, next Wednesday. So probably Wednesday afternoon. I tend to get hit with quite a few Thanksgiving questions. I'll probably be checking in here on YouTube as well as with the TV station. So there we go. All right, y'all. Until then, thanks for joining me today. I appreciate it, and we'll see y'all next week. Bye.